Atlantis. Few words in human history carry the same weight of mystery, speculation, and obsession. It's the name of a civilization that, according to legend, was so advanced, so powerful, and so arrogant that it was destroyed by the gods in a single day and night of catastrophe. But was Atlantis ever real? Or was it just a story spun by one philosopher more than 2,000 years ago? Let's go back to the beginning, Plato's story. The very first record of Atlantis comes from the Greek philosopher Plato around 360 BC. In his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, Plato describes Atlantis as a mighty island empire. He claims the story came to him through Solon, a respected statesman of Athens, who heard it from Egyptian priests during a visit to the city of Sais. Plato writes that Atlantis lay beyond the Pillars of Hercules, today known as the Strait of Gibraltar. The Atlanteans lived on a large island in the Atlantic Ocean. Their land was rich with resources, precious metals, fertile soil, elephants, exotic plants, and advanced engineering. He describes the capital city in extraordinary detail. Rings of land and water surrounded a central island. Bridges connected the rings. Temples were plated with gold, silver, and a mysterious metal called orichalcum. At the very center stood a temple to Poseidon, god of the sea, who was considered the protector of Atlantis. According to Plato, the Atlanteans once lived in harmony, virtuous, and just. But over time, greed and ambition corrupted them. They began conquering neighboring lands, spreading their empire deep into Europe and Africa. Only the Athenians resisted their expansion. Then, as punishment for their arrogance, the gods unleashed destruction. Earthquakes and floods consumed the island, sinking it into the sea. Atlantis vanished forever. History or allegory? Plato's story was written as a dialogue, half philosophy, half myth. Some historians argue it was never meant to be literal. Instead, it served as an allegory about the dangers of hubris, with Atlantis as a cautionary tale. Yet the level of detail, geography, architecture, laws, and even a timeline of 9,000 years before Plato's own era made many wonder if he was recording history disguised as myth. And so the hunt for Atlantis began. Medieval silence and Renaissance revival. Through the Middle Ages, Atlantis was mostly forgotten. But during the Renaissance, when Europeans rediscovered classical texts and launched voyages across the Atlantic, the legend returned. Explorers speculated that the New World might be Atlantis reborn. Some connected it to the Aztecs and the Maya, whose monumental architecture and astronomy impressed Europeans. By the 16th century, Atlantis had become a symbol of lost wisdom, a civilization that might explain the mysterious origins of the world's greatest cultures. The 19th century Atlantis craze. In 1882, an American politician and writer named Ignatius Donnelly published Atlantis, The Antediluvian World. The book argued that all known civilizations, Egyptian, Mesopotamian, even Native American, were descendants of Atlantis. He claimed the Atlanteans invented writing, metallurgy, agriculture, and religion, and that their survivors spread this knowledge after the island sank. Donnelly's book became wildly popular. It fueled a new wave of speculation, turning Atlantis into a cornerstone of pseudo-archaeology. Suddenly, people were seeing Atlantis everywhere, from the Caribbean to Scandinavia. Theories of location. So where could Atlantis have been? The Mediterranean theory. Some argue Atlantis was not in the Atlantic at all, but in the Mediterranean. The island of Santorini, also known as Thera, experienced a massive volcanic eruption around 1600 BC. The eruption destroyed much of the Minoan civilization. Its concentric island structure, preserved in fragments, resembles Plato's description. The Atlantic Ocean theory. Others take Plato literally. If Atlantis lay beyond the Strait of Gibraltar, perhaps it was swallowed by the Atlantic. Supporters point to the Azores Islands as remnants of a sunken continent. The Sahara theory. Satellite imagery of Mauritania reveals the Richat Structure, also called the Eye of the Sahara. This massive circular formation has uncanny similarities to Plato's concentric rings. Some researchers argue shifting coastlines and climate could mean the Sahara once held water, fitting Plato's account. The Caribbean theory. In the 20th century, divers claimed to have found underwater roads and structures near Bimini in the Bahamas. Though geologists later explained them as natural formations, the Bimini Road is still touted by believers as evidence of Atlantis. The Antarctica theory. Fringe theorists claim Atlantis is hidden under the ice of Antarctica, based on distorted old maps and claims of sudden pole shifts. Scientific rejection. Despite endless speculation, no concrete evidence for Atlantis exists. Archaeologists and geologists generally view it as myth. Plato may have based it loosely on real events, like the collapse of the Minoans after the Thera eruption. But mainstream science rejects the idea of a lost super-civilization, Atlantis and the paranormal and fringe theories. Of course, that hasn't stopped Atlantis from growing in legend. New Age writers claim the Atlanteans wielded crystal energy, psychic powers, and flying machines. Some say they were visited by extraterrestrials or were aliens themselves. In the 20th century, mystics like Edgar Cayce popularized the idea that Atlantis would one day rise again, its ruins discovered beneath the Atlantic. His predictions never materialized, but they kept Atlantis alive in the spiritual imagination. Atlantis in pop culture. Atlantis has become one of the most enduring legends in modern media. From Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea to Disney's animated Atlantis, The Lost Empire, to Aquaman's Underwater Kingdom, Atlantis has been reimagined endlessly. It represents both utopia and apocalypse, hope and warning. Why Atlantis endures. So why does the legend survive? Because Atlantis speaks to something deep in the human mind. The belief that we once lived in a golden age, wiser and more advanced than we are now. The story is both a cautionary tale and a tantalizing dream, a warning against arrogance and a hope that maybe, just maybe, we can uncover secrets that will change everything we know about history. Whether real or imagined, Atlantis remains a mirror. It reflects our fears of destruction, our longing for lost wisdom, and our endless fascination with the unknown. More than 2,000 years after Plato, the world is still asking the same question. Did Atlantis really exist? Until we have proof, it remains the greatest what if in history. Comment, like, and subscribe for more ancient enigmas and unsolved mysteries.